Howdy folks, it's me, Josh. So for today's video, I held a contest in my Discord server to see who could create the most interesting alternate history scenario, with the best scenario being made into a video. All of the scenarios submitted were extremely good, but in the end, I decided to go with the scenario written by the user Zap on if the Franco-Prussian War turned into a world war. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The year is 1866, and after a long rivalry for dominance over Germany, the Kingdom of Prussia had just defeated the Austrian Empire in what was known as the Austro-Prussian War, securing dominance over Germany. After the war, the King of Prussia, Wilhelm I, pushed for a harsh peace against Austria, which would completely decimate them. The minister-president of Prussia, though, Otto von Bismarck, who had been orchestrating Prussia's efforts at unifying Germany, knew that this was a bad idea, as if Prussia was too harsh against Austria, they would end up bitter, which could lead to further conflict between them, and could also lead to international backlash. So, listening to Bismarck, Wilhelm placed a rather light peace on Austria, not demanding any territory. And furthering their pushes for German unification, Prussia would end up creating the North German Confederation, a political union among the North German states, which kept a great amount of autonomy for all the states that joined. However, the southern German states, who were much closer with Austria and feared Prussian dominance over Germany, were wary of joining any confederation under Prussia. However, not giving up on his mission to unite Germany, Bismarck decided that he would try to coerce the southern states to join his union by using a foreign threat to have the southern states seek Prussian protection. So, in 1870, after a small dispute between France and Prussia over a Prussian royal's claim to the Spanish throne, Bismarck slightly edited a telegram known as the Ems telegram to spur anger in France against Prussia, leading Napoleon III, the Emperor of France, to declare war on Prussia. So, with this foreign threat created, the southern German states flocked to Prussian protection, and after a decisive Prussian victory in this Franco-Prussian War, Prussia would proclaim the German Empire in Versailles, naming King Wilhelm as Kaiser Wilhelm I. After the war, Germany took the territory of Alsace-Lorraine, which left France extremely bitter against the Germans. And Austria, now Austria-Hungary, would end up forming close ties with Germany, with the two forming an alliance. And so, as the balance of power in Europe shifted, the continent ended up drifting towards the First World War. But what if that changed? What if, in an alternate timeline, King Wilhelm ignored Bismarck's pushes for a light peace on Austria, instead placing much harsher terms on them? After being ignored, Bismarck considers resigning, but in order to make sure King Wilhelm didn't ruin Prussia, he ends up staying and instead negotiates with the king, leading to a very different peace. Instead of creating the North German Confederation, Prussia outright annexes all of the North German states, abolishing their monarchies, reducing them to the same level of any other Prussian province. And, in addition to this, Prussia also annexes Hesse, the Bavarian Palatinate, and Austrian Silesia. Though these changes may seem minute, this ends up completely changing the attitudes of Austria and the South German states towards Prussia. Austria is humiliated from losing territory and wants revenge on Prussia to gain their land back. Bavaria is also pissed from losing the Palatinate, and the South German states begin to view Prussia as an enemy, especially for deposing so many royal families in Germany. So, without the autonomy of a North German Confederation, they never consider willingly joining a Prussian-led Germany, even if it means protection from a foreign power, seeing that their entire country would be destroyed if they joined. In the years leading up to the Franco-Prussian War, things mostly remained the same. However, without Prussia knowing, Austria-Hungary, bitter against Prussia, makes a deal with France, promising to help them in case they end up going to war against Prussia. And, similarly to our timeline, Russia makes a deal with Prussia, promising to help them if Austria-Hungary joins any war against them. Due to the alliance structures built up, the Franco-Prussian War could be sparked in a number of different ways in this timeline. However, to keep things simple, we're gonna have it start the same way, with Bismarck tweaking the Ems telegram, sparking outrage in France, leading to war. Austria-Hungary and the South German states, honoring their alliance with France, launch a surprise attack on Prussia, as Russia joins as well, sending troops to occupy Galicia. Meanwhile, Italy, which was in its own process of unification, after forcing Austria out of most of northern Italy, was looking to take the final piece it needed to complete its unification: Rome. At this point, Rome was under the control of the Papal States, which were protected by France. In our timeline, after the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War, with France distracted, Italy attacked Rome, taking the territory and completing its unification. In this timeline, though, instead of just attacking Rome while France was distracted, Italy outright joins the war on the Prussian side, seeking to gain not only Rome, but also some lands in Piedmont that France had taken from them, and some Italian lands still held by Austria. Prussia is quick to overrun the South German states, managing to capture their capitals in the first 2 months of the war, and soon after launches an invasion into Bohemia, getting past the mountain defenses in about a month. Russia occupies all of Galicia before being held back by Hungarian defenses, and once Italy joins, they begin to launch invasions across the Alps into Austria and France, as well as taking the defenseless Corsica. Soon after, Prague is captured by Prussian troops, and once it falls, King Wilhelm is proclaimed the new German Emperor in the city, as it was, at one point, the capital of the Holy Roman Empire, as opposed to Versailles. Just as the empire itself, the flag of the newly created German Empire is also slightly different, as without the North German Confederation, the red in our world's flag, which represented the non-Prussian North German states, is instead a Prussian blue. After 2 years, the war likely ends up ending with a Prussian victory. In the aftermath, Russia gains Galicia, Prussia gains the South German states, a greater portion of Alsace-Lorraine, and all of Bohemia. And Italy gains Corsica, Old Piedmontese lands, Istria, and South Tyrol. Austria-Hungary is allowed to survive in order to not upset the balance of power in Europe, and also not to draw other nations like Britain into the war. After the war, Austria-Hungary, racked by the divides caused by its extreme levels of internal diversity, is forced to decentralize into a Danube Confederation, giving an equal status to all of the ethnicities within its borders. However, as the Danube Confederation begins to fall under Hungarian domination, it likely ends up falling apart as other nations begin to seek independence. And, upon collapse, it's very likely that the Germans would invade Austria, the Italians would take Dalmatia, and Russia would begin to exert its influence upon the rest of the territory. Due to the magnitude of this war, France likely leaves the conflict much more unstable than they did in our timeline, as Napoleon III is still overthrown. But with the greater levels of instability in France, they likely end up coming out of the war much less powerful than in our timeline. Without any competition from Austria, the Balkans would come under heavy Russian influence, as Britain and Russia compete for dominance over the Ottoman Empire. Speaking of Britain, with Germany and Russia forming close ties, Britain would likely end up being a lot quicker to form an alliance with France. But, as Prussia's dominance over not just Germany, but Europe as a whole, continues to grow, the continent begins nearing its next great conflict. I want to give another big thanks to Zap for writing this scenario, and to everyone else who submitted for this contest. And if you want to participate in the next one, make sure to join my Discord server through the link in the description for the chance to have your scenarios appear on my channel. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to stick around for more. And hey, you could also, maybe, subscribe or something. So, that's it for today's video. Well, till next time, see ya.